Thanks everybody to be here. So without further delay, I will start talking about collaborative economy. Not about blockchain, because this is what matters for me the most. And the technology is just a way to get here. So I don't need to explain much about this. Basically, I'm talking about communities that collaborate in some way, mediated by a platform online. We can be talking about GitHub and open source projects that are using the platform to improve their processes, governance, collaborate online, scale. We can be talking about the good old Wikipedia that we all know. Or we can be talking about things that are more recent, like the so-called sharing economy, like Airbnb, Uber, right? We can also be talking about Kickstarter and crowdfunding, and where people put together resources to fund some projects. In all of them, we have the same structure. Communities collaborating in some way, on a platform, an owner of the infrastructure that is providing a service through a software relying on some sectors. Of course, the growth of the collaborative economy is exponential. This is going to grow more. The expectation is that this is going to grow more and more. But this has a few challenges. And how I see it, it has three major challenges. So the first one is infrastructure. So we have these huge platforms and these owners of infrastructure that provide this service through a software that relies on servers, data centers that they control. So they control the hardware and the software where the service is deployed. This implies that they have to deal with hundreds of thousands or even millions of users interacting with their platform. And this has enormous costs in practice. The cost of scalability, of maintenance, of just running the service. It's, without talking about the competition and whatever, just maintaining the service as it is has very high costs. So then we are structurally pushing to these owners of the infrastructure to monetize as much as they can. And what do they typically have to monetize? Our data, so surveillance tends to be the business model of the internet. Just structurally, it's the way that we are pushing these platforms to behave. This results in a huge difference of power between those that control infrastructure and the communities of users. It doesn't matter how many scandals the owners of the infrastructure suffer, the communities of users have no impact whatsoever in how the platforms evolve. We have seen it with Uber very clearly, right? How many scandals have we seen with Uber? And how much impact have the users had in influencing their policies or their platform, right? So there is a big governance issue here. They are governed like classical corporations in a hierarchical manner by a CEO or a board of stakeholders, like Coca-Cola would be managed. Although here we are dealing with dynamics where it's the communities that are creating the value of these platforms. And yet, they have no power. And derived from this difference of power, there is an economic issue. All the economic profit is concentrated in the owners of infrastructure. And the users receive either leftovers or nothing at all, even though they engage in value creation all the time. So we have these structural challenges in the way internet works today and platforms work today. And P2P models, this project I'm presenting today, has a simple yet incredibly ambitious research question, and is, can we build platforms in another way? Can we build platforms where the infrastructure is decentralized, so there is not a single owner of infrastructure, but multiple, structurally? Can we build platforms where the governance of the platforms, of how they evolve, is democratic? So the users have a voice in how the platforms evolve. And can we have platforms where the profits generated are somehow distributed towards the users. Or maybe we can create new types of business models, maybe not relying so much on market dynamics, maybe relying on other experimental forms that we could create where the users receive some more value from their interactions in this platform. Well, we will be exploring these questions in a project that has been funded by the European Research Council, a European institution that gives large grants to high impact, high risk research. And I will be doing that from Spain, in the University of Madrid, with help from people in Berkman. And we are hiring, in case anyone is interested. So, in order to try to approach these challenges, we will try to be using decentralized technologies and, in particular, blockchain. I don't want to be framed as this, like, pro-hype, typically techno-determinist, libertarian, like, yay, blockchain will solve everything, will tear down states, will tear down all economies, and blockchain will solve all the problems of the world, and we will reinvent everything or whatever. But I don't believe that. But I do think that blockchain has certain uses that we can get benefit from. So what do I mean by blockchain? Who's familiar with blockchain here? Can you raise your hand, more or less? Okay, good. So I will not get in the technology, and yet if you want to ask me stuff, please feel free, okay? So basically what we mean here is typically we have a centralized server where all the users are connected, right? The user, the server, regardless if it's Wikipedia server or Airbnb server, is basically code stored in a machine, a server, that does the storage and the computation, right? Stores the data and the code and computes the instructions and operations that you want them to do, right? Responding to your interactions. With blockchain, the idea is that we have the storage and the computation distributed in a network. So the data is stored in all the nodes, copied in all the nodes, duplicated. It's not fragmented. It's all the nodes have the same information. And they store not only the data, but the code of the operation that you want to run. And the computation is also done in a distributed manner. I will not get into that, how the miners and all this stuff works, but let's abstract ourselves and say, okay, the computation is done, the storage is done. And these pieces of code that are in the blockchain, recorded in the blockchain, are called the smart contracts, basically because we can embed rules there, we can embed agreements there. But like you can do this with any code, but it's just that here, no one can unplug it. It's distributed in a network. It's not in a central server that someone controls and can unplug or change. So it's just a matter of who controls it. And the same way that I could have a contract written with Primavera, a legal contract, I can also write it in code and have mediated our interactions through code, through rules written in code. The same way I could decide to do an organization with other people here, a legal organization, and we should decide on bylaws, right? And the bylaws of the organization, or a nonprofit, for example, will decide how do we interact with each other, how do we govern the group, right? We will be mediated by the rules of this legal organization. Well, we can do the same with code. We can do these bylaws, we can write them in code and put them in a blockchain. This is what we call a decentralized autonomous organization. Basically, a code that is mediating the interactions of a group of people. So we interact with each other, mediated by the rules in that code. This is already happening in Airbnb, for example. We interact with each other, mediated by the code of Airbnb. Airbnb decides the rules. It's just that here we can deploy these rules that govern the group in a blockchain, and then unless it's programmed explicitly, there wouldn't be a person controlling it directly. We can decide how this code works. So these DAOs, these Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, may be a possible solution to the centralized infrastructure issue that we were talking about. Can we replace central platforms with central servers and the code that mediates communities by DAOs? Well, I don't know. This is a research question, but it's worth exploring it. So then we should ask, okay, then how are these DAOs implemented? How can we build these DAOs? How it is built today? Well, today they are typically built on top of Ethereum. Ethereum is a distributed computing platform that provides a blockchain and a layer of abstracting the complexities of the blockchain, let's say. It provides some tools and a programming language to build smart contracts and DAOs. For reasons that I will not get here, although those in the field know pretty well, this is very complicated and has multiple issues, and there have been already similar disasters around trying to code these DAOs directly into Ethereum. So with this project, we will try to provide a middleware, some tools that facilitate the construction of DAOs. We will try to be agnostic with respect to the platform, although right now Ethereum is the only, not very robust, but still working environment where we can experiment with this. And yet, as the field is evolving very quickly, we will try to be agnostic in case we need to change platform. But the idea is to facilitate the construction of DAOs in a modular way. Which type of DAOs? Well, DAOs for the collaborative economy. DAOs focused on the collaboration of communities. And we will do so providing building blocks, like Legos, embedding certain features. For example, if I want to build a new decentralized distributed Airbnb, I would need, I need a marketplace between hosts and users, right? So I would need the feature of the marketplace. That would be a certain number of boxes, of blocks. And I would need some kind of reputation mechanism. So I have the reputation of the hosts and the reputation of the renters. And I should have some kind of social network. So there is messaging across them, right? So I can combine different building blocks and deploy my new service in a decentralized manner. And what about the other challenges? Well, we can try to operate the same way. We can define different governance models, different ways of taking decisions within a community, write code for that, embed it in a building block, and deploy it. So let's work with examples. For example, in Stack Overflow, it's a community where people interact with each other and get reputation out of the interaction. And the more reputation you have, the more permissions you have in the network. You can change things, you can delete things of others and whatever, only if you are a reputed member of the community. Well, this is in practice, this is a governance model, where you are giving power to those with high reputation. The Slashdot has a similar meritocratic approach, but different, where you have moderators, and the moderators are the ones that acquire the reputation and stuff like that. You have a Wikipedia where you have a classical representative democracy model. So people vote to choose the administrator. Administrators vote to choose kind of super admins. And like that until you reach the board of the Wikimedia Foundation. Standard voting, majority rule, like we are used to in classical democracies. We also have the emerging trends of platform cooperativism, where they are trying to get governance mechanisms from the classical co-op movement and apply it to platforms. We can experiment with multiple governance models, encode them, and deploy them, and see how that happens. And the same way we can do it with economic models.
Yeah, one question. So you said that you want to use classical voting, like we see in standard democracy. But in standard democracies, there's actually very strong notions of identity, or at least we would hope that there would be. You know, things like double voting and things like that. So can you speak about, in this proposed vision, who's handing out identities? What prevents, me, let's say, an online jerk from making 5 different identities? So I'm going to have like 5x voting power.
So we have several ways of tackling that. The first one would be to rely on centralized identities. That's it. And some organizations might opt for that. That's it. There are many other projects working on identity on the blockchain. And yet you can do like Stack Overflow does already. Can a person have 5 identities? Yes, they can. It's not a big deal. Why? Because it takes a lot of effort to reach high reputation in each of the 5. So a newly created identity has nearly no power. So the sheer number doesn't mean anything. The number of identities. Only the history of each identity is what gives the history of interactions, of involvement, of participating in groups, of contributing to the commons somehow. It's what is giving you more reputation in the system. And therefore, we don't mind if one person has multiple identities, because only the high reputation ones would have weight in the community. And if you spend so much effort to have two identities in parallel, well, good for you. Probably, if you have invested the same amount of effort in one single identity, you would have much more.
Although that does make subtle assumptions about how power in sort of the fiat world translates into power in this identity space that you're talking about. So this is the classic problem with voting by mining, because that basically gives people who have a lot of power in terms of CPU cycles more influence in how the voting takes place. So like with that identity thing, I mean, that's correct, assuming that, let's say, a government doesn't want to hire a bunch of low-wage workers to, build up reputation for the purposes of accumulating a bunch of voting power, so on and so forth. So I guess at a high level, it's a question of, what your threat model is. But do you care about that attack or not?
Sure.
Because like Slashdot, really does not care about that. But if you're imagining you're going to put, I don't know, like medical records or things like that in your application, attacks like this might make a big difference.
I agree. I mean, I would never recommend putting medical records in a blockchain. Like, I find it, with all respect, I find it a nonsense application to put medical records recorded in a blockchain. And you can use blockchain for services or in the medical health space, for sure. But putting the data inside of the my private data inside of the blockchain, I find it. I mean, it's just that there are some, whatever. And I agree. I mean, it is definitely changing the threat model, and it is changing the implications that the context has, and it will depend in a case-by-case basis depending on the organization that is dealing with it. We will just provide a menu of options, and if you don't want to use any of the options provided, you can program your own, and that's fine with us. And then again, we don't need to be super fundamentalist on here and try to do everything distributed. You can still rely on central actors that provide you certain services, including identity. And certain organizations will definitely go for that. And it's fine. Okay? So, economic models, we can do this similarly. We can embed different economic models in building blocks and deploy them in as, again, more Legos to choose them. In combination with a governance model, in combination with features, so you can choose them and deploy them. Which type of economic models are we talking about? For example, we could have one in which uploaders are rewarded by uploading content, and downloaders have to pay a monthly fee in order to access the content. We can imagine things like Patreon, but in a distributed manner, where you can donate to creators' content. We can play with different kinds of non-monetary rewards, not necessarily cryptocurrencies, but for example, reputation, or decision-making power, or tokens that are different. They don't need to be reputation. They might be non-transferable. They might be even embed gratitude, for example. We could even play with, experiment with how would a basic income in the level of a community work, where we are giving all the users the same amount regularly. Well, we can experiment with that. It opens the field to interesting research questions that we can be working on. So on top of the framework, we will provide these models, these multiple building blocks. Before deploying them in a real context, we will simulate these models, because we don't want to break too many things, basically. So, okay, we encode some kind of governance model. Okay, let's do a simulation of it. Let's see what are the edge cases, how this can evolve, a sensitivity analysis of the parameters, and see how this can play out, at least in a simulated environment, in a safe lab environment, before we deploy it in a real context. Because, for example, we wouldn't want to, if suddenly we introduce rewards in Wikipedia, maybe we break the whole community, because people would maybe compete for the reward, breaking the collaborative dynamic, and creating a market dynamic where there shouldn't be one, right? So we have to take care, a lot of care, on where are we introducing what kind of effects, right? Wikipedia had a long time ago an internal discussion to see if they should introduce a reputation system or not within the system, within Wikipedia, and they decided not to, because of the dangers were too high to incorporate the risks, right? So this is an interdisciplinary project, and we will be doing also social research on economic models and governance models, both in the literature and in the real world that are working, to see how can we implement, which of them makes sense to implement in a transactional system like blockchain. And we will be working along with communities to understand what are the priorities, what are the problems, in order to prioritize the things that we are going to develop by their needs, not just by what we think in our heads that is the best option. So, because in the end, the best way of validating a framework is with real users in real environments. So we will be building pilots alongside co-designed with real communities. So communities that are mature, that are robust, large, out there, that want to do prototypes in sub-parts of their communities, prototypes on how to improve their governance, or how to decentralize or automatize certain features, or how to distribute some kinds of rewards. Okay, let's try to do pilots with them, so in a small part of the community. So if it breaks, it doesn't break the whole thing, but if it works, it can scale eventually to the whole community. So one of the communities that we are going to be working on is Samara. This is the largest community for creation of subtitles, which basically, if there is a network of volunteers that they subtitle the videos that they want, but if you want your specific video to be subtitled, you have to pay. And they have a network, which is working very well. It's pretty economically sustainable, where it's mixing volunteers and freelancers. And we could work with Amara in multiple ways. For example, they want their decision-making to be more inclusive, to take into account more people. So we could maybe automatize some things to include a higher percentage of the community in their decision-making processes. Or we could, for example, automatize some rewards. So each time that someone contributes a subtitle, receives automatically some kind of reward, without having someone explicitly doing it, but encoded in a decentralized manner. And still we would have the non-profit, and still we would have an organization running things. So it's not that it will be magically happening. We'll just be automatizing part of the work. So we will be providing a testbed for experimentation of researchers, developers to experiment in this field. And which kind of research questions can we be exploring? Okay, for example, what are the limits of purely technical governance? For example, Bitcoin, or the infamous DAO, they are purely technically governed, at least theoretically. Well, what are the limits of that? And does that work for any organization, or not really? Or how much humans want to be involved in the decision making? How many of the decision making, or how many things can we automatize, and how many things we don't want to automatize, and we want committees to decide, or people to decide, or actual organizations. Can we improve inclusion or diversity in these decentralized organizations? Maybe formalizing more rules and making visible work that today is invisible or informal. Can we encode democracy in the design of these systems? The same, for example, as in BitTorrent, solidarity is embedded in the code because it's obligatory to upload when you're downloading, structurally in the code. Can we implement these kinds of things, these kinds of values in the code of this decentralized organization? And similarly with economics, can we explore which incentives increase the productivity, for example, of these communities, but at the same time without disrupting the collaborative dynamics of these communities? Which kinds of incentives would work? Not necessarily cryptocurrencies, it can be multiple types of incentives. Or how the economic model affects the governance and vice versa. Well, we don't know. I have absolutely no clue, right, about these questions. There are such questions that we will be happy to be exploring during the project. Because in the end, what we are trying to do is move towards a different kind of collaborative economy. An collaborative economy where there are multiple actors and not a single one controlling all the field, controlling all the interactions of the users. These platforms would evolve in a way that, we will enable users to somehow have a voice on how the platform should evolve. So for example, we could vote, in the most simpler way, we could vote for a feature to be implemented across the users of a certain service. So if the users want the feature implemented, it will be implemented. If not, it won't. And maybe there has to be a fork of that service with that feature, and the users that like it go there. The idea here is to have a context in which we, instead of trying to compete with the traditional centralized monopolies, we have an ecosystem that is open and as interoperable as possible, where there are multiple components that these DAOs will be sharing. And then it's much more difficult for the service providers to do login of the users. Because today, if I want to move away from Airbnb, well, all my reputation is there, all the listings are there. If I move to a different hosting service, home sharing service, there is a huge coldwood where there is no one there, right? So it doesn't make sense neither for the hosts nor for the people renting to go to another platform. But if in an open ecosystem where the listings are shared, it's data that is decentralized, it's not in blockchain somewhere, it's decentralized and shared. The reputation is shared because all the users sharing the same blockchain, sharing the same reputation, and I can share my reputation across DAOs. Well, then the code, and the code is, it's much easier for the user to move across services, because it's much more difficult for the service provider to log in all my data or all my history in one place. So the difference is the value that they are, the proposition of values that they can provide me. It's narrower. It's like the film has been deconstructed. And for example, the governance rules will be different. And I might choose one Airbnb that is adapted to a local culture when I visit this place, and that has rules adapted to that local culture. And I might go to an Airbnb that it's totally anonymous, because I don't want people to know publicly that I am visiting this place. And maybe it's more expensive, but it's anonymous. I'm willing to pay. Or maybe I go to a place where there is risk that I want to guarantee that when I land from the airport that I have a house and that there is this peer-to-peer network is very fluffy and very, I don't trust it as much as having a central middleman. So I'm willing to pay a service that assumes all the risk and has a high insurance. So I have a guaranteed house when I arrive. These are different services of different types of Airbnb that could be provided and that a single user could be choosing in different contexts. And if I could move more fluently across them, definitely it would be business opportunities, new business models, new operations in an ecosystem that is at least more open than today. The barriers of entry in such a model are much lower than today, because today in practice is a winner-takes-all market. Internet, decentralized internet creates all the time winner-takes-all market, where the one that reaches there has a platform that is a monopoly. So can we change the rules of the game instead of trying to compete with these monsters? Well, I don't know. I think it's worth trying. And that's it. I hope that we can have a nice discussion.
So I'll start.
Please.
And I think it was back on your third slide, where you said, well, we can have a centralized system, or we can have blockchain. And the whiplash of that, I'm still getting over, because it strikes me that what you're really saying is we can have a centralized system, or we need to have a distributed system with some form of consensus over lots of copies of the data. There's about 40 years of history of consensus algorithms, of which blockchain is probably the most expensive computationally and the least scalable. So why does this require blockchain? And in fact, I think looking at all of the other things you're talking about, nothing that you're talking about doing actually requires blockchain. It just requires distributed consensus and copies everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What have I misunderstood?
I am flexible on opening and open to implement it in other systems, and yet, I work with federated systems, and we fail every time that we try to do these things in a federated way.
So this time for sure?
No idea. I have absolutely no clue. I really have no clue. We try to do these things with federated systems, with XMPP protocols, and the weight protocol, I don't know if you remember it. In a previous project, we engineered the weight protocol to work with collaborative systems that were federated in real time, stuff like that, for communities. And yet federation has again and again failed to work on its promise. It generates, there are no incentives structurally for people to federate. There is a strong tendency to centralization. And as long as there are owners of the infrastructure controlling the servers, it keeps failing. And then I wonder, well, maybe we should drop federation and try other things. There is IPFS that provides a peer-to-peer systems that are not using blockchain and that it's trying to use decentralized applications. Today it's very young for the decentralized applications that IPFS is running, and there is no clear consensus mechanism for them. We are open to change that, to change to something else. I mean, I am not married to blockchain. It's just that today, I do think that to deploy a decentralized autonomous organization in a context where it's no dependent on central servers, we don't have so many options. We have federated options, at least that, as far as I know, running things. We have a project called Holochain that is trying to work in that direction, and still, again, super mature. We don't know where it will go. I was talking with Arthur, the founder of it, a couple of months ago. I'm still not convinced. Maybe I am eventually when they have projects running. I really don't know. It's just a very dynamic field. I am very open to experimenting with multiple decentralized technologies. I care to have these features that I explained, and as long as I have them, I'm very happy to change technology. It's true that blockchain is very expensive. It's computationally very, very expensive. It's true that it has very structural problems around the scalability and other issues. I think that there are a lot of proposals on the table to evolve blockchain to different things. We don't know which one will be successful. We don't know if any of them, of the proposed solutions in a couple of years, will make different kinds of blockchains scalable or not. But I'm happy to experiment with it and play with it. And today, I think, at least for doing prototypes, Ethereum is the most somehow robust environment that we have. If tomorrow, IPFS, Holochain, or other Merkle tree-based system proves me that I can deploy DAOs on top of them without the problems of federation, I'm very happy to move.
Others?
So these centralized systems have a big advantage, right, in that they're very simple, right? You sign up for the service, you use username and password, you sign away your rights and your left kidney, and then you can go on and do what you really want to do, which was send funny cat videos to your friends, right? And in the model you're suggesting, I think you're asking common users to do a lot more work with that. And it's not clear to me that that's something that most users either want or indeed are really capable of actually doing in a fully formed way. Do you have some reason to believe that that is true?
So, for the end user, it doesn't have to be that different. It's just that they will see things, I mean, the way I want to believe. I mean, today, to use a blockchain-based service for a standard user, it's a headache. It's a headache. They have to install at least an extension in their browser and pay for its interaction with cryptocurrency, which is a pain in the ass for my parents. Right? And yet you can build gateways, you can build bridges, you can eventually integrate it in standard browsers. But users, they can, if they suddenly can connect to the service and they suddenly can vote on the platform features, well, that's a benefit for them. They don't need to know that it is a blockchain, blah, 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 service. The same way that they don't know today how the data centers work. I mean, we can abstract a lot for the user. And in any case, I'm trying to provide tools here to the developers, to the researchers, to build services that, in some way or another, can serve their users.
Yeah, and two points, one general one and one very special one. The general one, you assume that it's decentralized and that there are no intermediaries anymore, but aren't either those voting for you because you don't care about voting? Aren't you one of the new intermediaries in that game? Aren't the old banks now organizing a currency blockchain or being the agent for you are just the old intermediary in a new way. So is it really that decentralized, or is it just shifting to another way of organizing the economy and having all the intermediaries we need in everyday life, or we want to have, but because we don't care about everything and we don't always want to vote about a huge amount of things which would have to be decided every day on every single thing. So that's the first question, or the first statement. And the second one is a special one. You said that it's not possible to transport the data from one company to another. So just as a short sort of extra input, the new general data protection regulation in Europe just offers such a right, at least for European users. There's a lot of debate how it's working or whether it's working, but at least in theory it does provide that right now to have a right to data.
So, okay, I think you did 3 questions on me. So you know, is shifting the trust in the middleman server to the trust in the developers? Yes, totally. I completely agree. It's not a trustless thing. It's just that you are, instead of trusting a monopoly corporation, you are trusting an open source community. Yes. And yet, it is, I mean, it has benefits, it has drawbacks, definitely. And yet, at least an open source community is more transparent, so others can see how it is working, others can influence the decision, others can participate. Even if you cannot participate directly, you can pay a developer to participate there. So definitely it's more decentralized governance. Even talking about both the blockchain or the specific service. This, I forgot the number. I remember that.
Old intermediaries, the new intermediaries, or the second one was the GDPR.
Yeah, well, the GDPR definitely is a legal tool that can undermine the power of these central actors. I think it goes in the right direction, and I think it's not enough. I mean, I think we still need to build alternatives to these central actors for that accountability to be portable somewhere. And even if you demand legally that Facebook does it, they will try to hide it, they will try to claim it, they will try to manipulate, they will try to do it in an uncomfortable way, so you cannot move it to the competitors, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because they have a lot of reach, they have a lot of power, it's very difficult. It's really very difficult. It's an arena that we don't know how to do it. I hope I could be more optimistic with GDPR, but I mean.
So you call them all communities, and communities usually have at least one culture, if not various cultures within a community, and the platform becomes kind of a de facto enforcer of culture sometimes with respect to what's allowed or respected or whatever the case may be. So my question is, can you enforce or encode culture in blockchain? Or is there a mechanism by which culture is respected, like the culture that has grown up in one place is respected, or is there a risk, the real risk, that culture then loses what it once was or is, or evolves outside of what a place, so to speak, was known for?
So the way I approach this is working with the actual communities to co-design the code, and they embed the rules that they want to use. So there will be rules that will need to be formalized and were informal. There will be rules that they don't want to formalize and that they don't want to put in the code, and that's totally cool. There will be rules that are already, processes that are already formalized, and that it's more straightforward. There are multiple things to work with the communities here. I wouldn't want to impose them a culture that is alien to them or that generates problems internally. On the opposite, I would want, typically the communities have a centralization problem, but that is social, like the 1990 rule that the 1% of the community is core contributors that are pushing forward, like typically the founders or like a core group that is pushing forward the community, and 9% of contributors that are occasional contributors, and a 90% that are more users, audience, that are going to the events or reading the contents or stuff like that. Maybe they are sharing their stuff, or maybe these people are active in other communities, like they might be, like for example, I am 1% in some communities, but I am 90% in the community of Firefox. I am a user of Firefox. But I contribute occasionally in Wikipedia, for example. I'm part of the 9% community. In the end, this 1% burns themselves out. They have conflicts, and then the community blows up. They have, there is a strong dependency on these core contributors. If we could automatize some of their work, maybe we can relieve some of the effort. If we can make some of the informal formalized in rules, maybe we can contribute to a more inclusive governance in these communities.
Yeah, so I just want to follow up on that question, something that's a little bit related. I mean, I think there's actually multiple levels of governance here to be thinking about, right? There's the governance where it says, like, let's say we're not going to change the platform API at all. Are we all going to agree on something we want to put into the ledger, let's say, to make a coin vote or something like that? And there's this other level of governance, which is what should the code enable fundamentally? So, I'm thinking of things here like the block size debate Bitcoin, right? So what that whole debate revealed is that actually there's a small set of people who are essentially not elected, who have a very large amount of control over decisions that affect the entire platform. And I think this kind of gets back to something that Jim was saying as well. I think that the goal here is not necessarily decentralization, although it's often framed as that. Really, it's of empowering users.
Yep.
And I think that then if you use that as the framing, then I think you can actually get around some of these issues of performance or the threat model, or whatever, because you could allow, let's say, semi-centralized stakeholders who, using technical means, you could prevent from monopolizing the service, but would get around a lot of these issues of like, mining or how to deal with forks. Like, it's very interesting to think about, let's say you give an application to everyone's proverbial parents. Apparently everyone's proverbial parents can't use computers whatsoever, and they're using one of these DAOs. So let's say like a fork happens in the underlying ledger. My goodness, how do I explain to my dad there's been a fork in the underlying ledger, and therefore all this history he had is now gone, but like that's what you wanted because the blockchain is the truth. So once again, I think the thing that a lot of the questions are sort of getting at is, what are the actual characteristics you're looking for? I would propose, and I'd be glad to hear your thoughts on this, that it's actually this empowering users thing that's your number one desired thing, and that you think that for whatever reason, for example, federation doesn't achieve that empowering goal. You think that blockchain will achieve that better, and therefore you're willing to deal with the trade-offs that sort of blockchain imply.
I think it's a very good point. I usually use decentralization as the wording, focusing on the decentralization of power. Like, instead of being in this central structure, let's decentralize where the control, the power lies. But I could frame it in the opposite way, like it's about empowering the communities, about empowering the users. I think it works, and it might be useful for communicating better. I think I would agree with that. On the layer 1, layer 2 issues, the layer 1 being the infrastructure governance, the layer 2 being actual communities with the code or whatever, I focus on layer 2 and I try to abstract myself from layer 1. Layer 1 has multiple problems. I honestly don't like how many of the things are working right now in layer 1, but it's just, I hope that there will be technologies that will do it in a better way or in a way that is closer to my what I would find ideal, and we can move that. And in the meanwhile, while the messes of layer 1 are being solved, we can try to move forward things in the layer 2 in an agnostic way.
Questions? Well, if not, let's thank our speaker. It was a great. told early on that it's always better to be interesting than right. And I think you made me both, but you were at least the first, so thank you. Our next colloquial will be in 2 weeks. We will go from the blockchain to how we can detect fake news, and a project going on down at the Kennedy School that is kind of an interesting practical application of this that is also looking for help. So come in 2 weeks. Next week we will have the internal meeting as usual of the circus folks, and thank you all for coming. And thank you again.